Welcome to today's show, where we help ordinary people understand that they can do extraordinary things. Today I got my friend Sean Siwa here from Toledo, Ohio. Sean is going to share a story how he went from being a carpet salesman selling flooring a long time ago to now owning and running a multi-six-figure real estate business here right home in Toledo, Ohio. Sean, how you doing?
Good, yourself?
Doing good, man. Thank you for taking the time to come down and bring some value to all of our followers.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So tell me a little bit about yourself. You married? Got children?
Married. Been married for 10 years. No kids. I've been born and raised in Toledo. Lived in Toledo my whole life, and we actually just moved up to Temperance a couple of years ago. I was in the flooring business probably 20 years ago. I got in there when I was 20 years old, started selling floors. And the one thing that helped me out in the flooring business is I actually used to call on investors. So people that would always need flooring, people that own rental properties, flip house guys. And I actually started selling floors to a local investor in town that they were flipping like 2 to 3 houses a month. And then I took real estate classes, and I met Dennis Degnan at that time.
And Dennis is your broker?
Dennis is my broker now. He's one of my mentors, and I owe a lot of credit to him. He actually showed me how to actually work this business, not just get licensed, but actually make a living,
So let's unpack some of that a little bit.
Yeah.
So you're 20, how old are you now?
I'm 40.
Okay, so 20 years ago, you were selling flooring in a carpet place. What got you into sales? Did you go to college before that?
I went to college, kind of failed out, was in the nursing program, and then kind of like, this isn't for me,
right.
And then my uncle offered me a job kind of just running the warehouse, and then he was like, hey, let's get you selling. And then that's kind of when I started selling. I read sales books and all that stuff, and it was really, how do you talk to people,
right.
How do you, people want something, how do you give it to them,
right.
And then there's kind of like a knack at selling, there's an art to it. But that's how it taught me how to actually sell, I guess.
Right, and your first group of clients was other real estate investors.
Pretty much, yeah. That was, guys that own 30, 40, 50 units of rentals where, the turnover rate every year, the people move out, they got to put new carpet in it. So it was kind of like an ongoing accounts, type people.
So this is pretty good. So let's talk about, so you had to make the decision, entrepreneurs, whether it's real estate, any type of business owner, at some point you have to make the decision where you're going to go from the nice, reliable job, going to work every day for your uncle,
yeah,
to going in all in on yourself, getting a real estate license. Yeah. What was that like?
I mean, being in sales though in the flooring business it's still all commission based. I mean, you have a really small salary, but it's still commission based. So you have to get up, you have to make phone calls and all that. You know what I mean? Cold call and get these accounts and just follow up with people.
Right.
But then to transition into real estate, I did flooring and real estate for about 6 months to a year. And then when I was like, okay, I need to go all in on real estate, that was a big step, but I was also 25 at the time.
Right.
So I didn't have a house, I didn't have a car payment or anything like that. Like my nut was only $2,000 a month. So right. I'm like, all I need to do is sell literally one house a month and then I can make it.
Got it.
So I still, the first year, lived paycheck to paycheck basically. You know what I mean?
Let's talk about that first year. When you, how did you transition from selling carpet to attracting the right kind of clients to buy and sell houses?
Yeah. So to start off though, when I got licensed, you take these classes and you really don't know how to sell, really. You don't know, it's like most people are like, okay, I'm licensed, what do I do now? And then, so I called Dennis and I'm like, hey man, I don't know what to do. I've taken all his classes, I know what you're gonna say next and all that, but like, how do I do it? And he's like, well, just come and shadow me. So I shadowed Dennis for a day and he literally cold called people, say, hey, this is Dennis Degnan, I work for Key Realty, you have a house for sale by owner, do you want to list with the realtor? Let's get an appointment. And I was like, oh, it's like that, So every day, it was actually Monday through Thursday from 5 to 7, I cold called for sale by owners.
Right.
And it was just a numbers game. You can call 20 people, you can get one appointment. For every one appointment, or every 4 appointments, you can get one listing. Out of every 4 listings, you get one sale. You know what I mean? So it was all a numbers game where basically I knew every day I can make phone calls for 2 hours. I'm basically gonna make $200.
Nice.
So that's kind of was like the numbers game back then. But you got to think that was in 2009, where houses sat on the market for 9 months. So the first 6 months that I did that, I ended up listing 42 properties in 6 months. Not all of them sold, but I met a lot of people. And after that, it just kind of snowballed into, you know what I mean, like getting more clients and people calling me, you know what I mean?
So you just said some really important things there I want people to understand is, so the bottom line is whether you know what you're doing in sales or you don't.
Yeah.
The most important thing you can do is talk to people.
Yeah, it's what I always tell people, new agents, when they come in this business, it's a contact sport, meaning the more people you contact, the better off you're going to do.
Got it.
So it's literally just call people, get out, let them know that you're a realtor, that you're going to sell houses, that you can help them buy houses, anything, just get in their face and provide value. And what I always tell people is, if you provide value for people, the money's always going to follow. It might not be 6 months from then, it might not be a year, but if you provide value for people, they're going to call you eventually, and you've got to provide good service for them.
This is all before the social media days, huh?
Yes, exactly. I mean, this is reading books and, you know what I mean, just watching people. And I wasn't afraid to ask people. Like, I'd call agents from other brokerages and be like, hey, how did you get in the business? Like, what did you do? Like, how did you start off, and how did you get to where you're at now? And a lot of them said, we just met people, we knocked on doors, you know. And there's certain people that, you know, they grew up in Ottawa Hills, and their neighbor was like the in charge of, you know, the relocation apartments at these Fortune 500s. Like, maybe they had an up on that at the time, but they still had to go over there and ask for business. You know.
So I know you have a very successful business, and a lot of it at the very beginning especially involved investors. Talk a little bit about how you went gaining the trust of an investor to list their properties from the beginning.
So it kind of started off, though, where there was a guy that I was working with. He's a broker now for another big brokerage in Toledo, but I was selling him floor covering, and I would go in and measure these houses before they actually started the work. Then I would see that they bought them for 50, they put 50 into them roughly, they sold them for 150, and I looked at it, I was like, how hard can that be? You know what I mean? It's like, and so I didn't know up from down, but then I met a couple of people that, and I didn't know what I was doing, but I was raising capital at the time. And I said, hey, there's a guy, here's all his numbers. This is what he's buying for, this is what he's selling for, this is how many you're doing a year. And I was like, we should try this. And the guy was like, okay, I trust you. Like, we'll do one, but make sure it's a home run. So did one, and I think we made like $32,000 on it. And it was, you learn from that though, you know? And then that turned into doing 2 a year with him. And then at the time, then I was like, raising capital with more people, you know. And at that time, though, back in 2009, 10, 11, there was houses all over the place. There was foreclosures. I mean, in Old Orchard, you drive by a house for $55,000, and you're like, I don't know, man, this doesn't, I might lose money on this. And now those houses are selling for $300,000. It's just, it's weird how that is back then, but you just gotta, you know, swan dive into the business, you know.
So you got your start actually overseeing rehab projects for other investors. Backed or funded by private money. How did that, so what did it look like? So were you listing them on the back end?
Yes. So I typically get a commission on the buy side, you know, which is a couple of grand. And then when at first I was doing it just for the commission on the sell side. So that's how I got some of my listings. And then the older I got, the smarter I got. I said, okay, let me get 30% of the profit. I'm not going to take any commission, but I'm not going to get paid unless you get paid. So if it doesn't make money, I'm just wasting my time. You're just coughing up the money, you know? And then it turned into me doing 50-50 deals with people. And, you know, so if the profit's 30,000, I'm getting 15, they're getting 15. And then over the last 15 years, kind of like now I have my own money that I can do my own deals, you know? So that we still have partners on some things, because sometimes it's good to have partners on a lot of deals, and other times it's better just to do it on yourself.
I think that's really cool how you've kind of, would you agree that there's different, with real estate, there's so many different ways to make money.
There's so hundreds of ways to make money. If you want to be a leasing agent, if you just want to be a showing agent, if you want to be a listing agent, a buying agent, you know, I mean, like I said, there's so many ways to provide value to the normal people, you know, and the business is amazing, but yeah, you're right. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of ways to make money in this business.
What have you noticed the changing on the whole aspect, whether it's be listing and selling properties or your investors that you work with? What kind of changes have you seen over the past 4 years since the pandemic started?
I mean, there's a lot of deals out there, but they're harder to find. There's a lot of people, like, if you would have told me 20 years ago, if I said, hey, there's 1,000 people in town with over $5 million, there's no way,
Right.
and I don't know what the numbers are, but there's a lot of people out there with a lot of money that want to do something with this. So if you can just talk to them and convince them or show them that they can make money in real estate, you can do it. But there's the buying ways, it used, like, all the banks used to list the properties on the MLS with a couple of agents. So you would see them in the MLS. Well, now they're going to auction.com or that. And then even the buying process, so like, when we first started buying properties at the sheriff's sale, we'd go down there every week, and there'd be 30 to 60 properties, and I'm like, this is crazy, And so you had to be there live in person. Now they do everything online, so you have these people from out of town that are just bidding online for property, so it's more difficult, So the buying process is different, but then you have wholesalers that offer you a price. And that was another challenge to talk to some of my big investors that I only list for or help them buy. They would be like, well, this guy's getting this house for $30,000. He's trying to sell it to us for $60,000. I'm like, it's a $200,000 house, so don't worry about what they're making. Worry about yourself. Right. You know what I mean? They're still providing value for you.
How did you do that? That's a great point. And we've known each other for a long time, and there's a lot of investors and a lot of real estate people in general. Yeah. Where they really a lot of regular agents don't see eye to eye. They don't like investors. Call it what it is. Yeah. A lot of investors and agents don't like or see eye to eye with wholesalers. Now, full disclosure, there's professionals and people that aren't so professional at everything. Yeah. I don't care whether it's your electrician or a realtor or an investor. It doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about both. There's two sides to wholesaling. Yeah. How did you have the conversation what was the conversation like with your investors on how you got them to be open-minded and not worry about the fact of what the wholesaler was making as long as their numbers aligned? Yeah.
The first wholesale deal that I bought was actually when I was flipping more houses at that time, and a friend of mine, he found a house for $75,000, and I can't think of the subdivision, but we ended up selling it for $320,000. So, right. and I think he bought it for $75,000. We bought it off him for $100,000, and we're looking at it like. And I talked to him. He was a friend of mine. I'm like, how are you gonna make $25,000 off me for not doing anything? He goes, Sean, I send out mailers, 5,000 of these a month. He goes, it looks like I'm making $25,000, but I might only be making $5,000 with all the mailers that I've done. Right. But I looked at it and I'm like, if I get this for $100 and I got to put $150 into it, I'm still making $70,000. So who cares if he's making $25,000? Right. Right. And you just have to just worry about the end number. Just worry about yourself.
Yeah. The difference in the real estate world is everything's disclosed, right? Yes. So when you sit down to do a transaction, you can look at the closing statement and see that the wholesaler is making X. Yeah. Well, when you go buy a car, you don't close on the car and see that the car lot is making X. You have no idea. Yeah. But it's the same concept. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I totally agree. It's like people just don't want you to make money off of them, but who cares if you're going to make more money than them, or at least something, It's like the hardest part is finding the deals right now. And so if I don't buy it for $100,000, someone else is going to buy it for $100,000, and then they're going to make $70,000. Right. So what's the difference? Right.
I think that's such a growth mindset, man. Because when you can find out and you can connect with other wholesalers or people that are doing the business at a professional level, you just eliminated the chase of trying to find the next deal because they're doing all the work for you.
And like from anyone, there's a lot of wholesalers that don't really give you good deals. Right. You can make the numbers look any way you want to. I have a lot of wholesalers that email me like, hey, are you interested in these properties in this zip code? I'm like, yes. And they're like, well, the ARV is $250,000. I'm like, no, it's not. It's $150,000. So yeah, it looks a good deal on paper, but it's not a good deal.
You deal with that too, huh?
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't? You know what I mean? There's so many people that want to be a wholesaler because they just think that they can take a product that they get for under contract for $10,000 and turn around and sell it for $50,000, but it's only worth $50,000. So there has to be some value for me though too. Yeah. And then there's certain people that understand our market, and like in Northwest Ohio, like let's take Old Orchard. Yeah. You go on the north side of Central, those sell for $125 a square foot. You go on the south side of Central, those sell for $150 a square foot. Yeah. You go on the other north side of Secor, those sell for $180 a square foot. And then you go on the south side of Bancroft and, by the university, and those are selling for $80. So they take this 2-mile radius and you have 8 different neighborhoods, and it doesn't make sense, I want
everybody to take something away from what he just said. In our area, and this is every market around the country, it doesn't matter, how dialed in, street by street, block by block, your market can change literally a 20 to 30% swing, and in our market it can change 50, 100, a lot. So it's very important, whatever market you're in, whatever part of the industry you're in, is understanding your numbers in every little neighborhood that you're doing business in, because it can swing from a $300,000 neighborhood, $1 million neighborhood, down to a $100,000 neighborhood within a mile. Right, so that's very important. I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, and like that's the thing is like a lot of agents, they have all these apps like RPR and all that, and they're like, well, my app's telling me the house is worth this. And I'm like, well, what are you saying it's worth? Right. You know what I mean? Because a neighborhood can change from value from a 4-bedroom to a 3-bedroom to a 2.5 to only a 1.5. It makes a big difference.
It does.
And you really need to know your numbers. But an app's not going to tell me that. I mean, they might be really close, but we all know how close the Zestimate app is. It's off all the time.
The worst thing that ever happened.
So it's like you can't base value off of that. You got to like literally dissect it all and figure out, is it a first floor master? Because houses in certain neighborhoods with a first floor master sell for a lot more than if there was 4 bedrooms upstairs.
You're right. So you've built a very strong business over 20 years, both regular retail clients and real estate investors. Talk about how you really leaned into your investor base. I mean, you got some of the biggest investors in town that you're working with, and out of town, all that. Talk about how you were able to provide value with them, because investors are difficult to win over.
Yeah, they
are. What was that like especially when you were coming out? So when you were 25 years old, young guy, some of the investors you're working with are in their 70s now, right?
Yeah.
How did you win those relationships?
Yeah, and it takes time. It's not like you're just walking into someone's office and literally, hey, I'm Sean Siwa, I sell houses, use me. They're like, so I went after a couple of guys, and it took me maybe 2 years to actually get them to trust me. But there was a time where, they had a house that they needed to sell, and I got fortunate. I listed it and it sold in 24 hours,
Nice.
and they're like, okay, maybe it can sell. But then they were doing lease purchases, so that's a lot of work on their end. But then when we started selling them for them, they were making more money in a short period of time and not holding on to this asset. So, and everybody's situation is different. There's people that love land contracts, and they still do them to this day. But you have to prove yourself, and then once you do it for a while, you get a track record of like, okay, my average days on market is 29 days, so that's what I'm showing people, but it does take time, and there's so many different investors, and when you deal with certain people, like we just sold one couple last week. The guy doesn't have to sell. He does not. He's like, if you can sell this, he bought a house for $170,000, and he's like, if you can sell this for $280,000, I'll sell it. But if you can't, I'm just going to rent it out. I don't need to sell it, And he's very large-minded, though. His goal is to make $200,000 a month, So he's like, I don't need the money. So if I can't get what I want, it doesn't matter. So, and that's a challenge for me, where I'm like, okay, I got to sell this house. What can I do to sell this house? If not, it's just wasting my time and his time. But we sold it, so it worked out.
What would you recommend to somebody that is the next 25-year-old? The next Sean Siwa coming through, walking through. I know you got to have the gall to walk in somebody's office. Number one. What would you recommend to somebody that's just coming out that says, I really like this investing thing. I want to build a network of investor clients. What do you tell them?
There's a lot of groups out there like REIA and all that. These guys meet on a regular basis, but you need to know who's the buyers, the legit buyers in your area. I mean, we know guys that own 500 houses, other guys that own 300, some own 200. Then there's guys that own 2,000 properties, and just have a conversation with them. They want deals just as much as we want to sell a house. So if you go to what are you looking for? They might give you we'll buy any West Toledo house for $50,000. We don't care the condition. And then you have to go out and find that. You know what I mean? So you have to provide value for them once again, but just trying to find what do they want, and there's guys that I represent that they only buy through certain people too. I only sell their houses, you know what I mean? And you can't get offended on that. There's guys that I do tons of work for, where I'm analyzing properties maybe 3 or 4 a day, and then they use another agent to buy it because they're the listing agent, and it's like, it hurts, but I get 20 listings a year out of that.
Right.
So it's like, what's the big deal? You know what I mean? $1,000, I'm not going to get upset, if I don't get $1,000 or $2,000, but I'm looking at the long run though.
So you're making sure, you're helping to make sure that the ARV, the after repair value, is something you can sell, number one.
Yes.
They'll go buy it,
Yeah.
do the work, do whatever they needed to do, and then you're coming around with listings better.
Yes.
Listings better anyways.
Yeah, exactly. Listings are better, in my opinion. You do less work, but then I feel like in certain situations, like if we're buying properties at sheriff sales or like there's a lot of properties you can't get in. So you're like, hey, I can sell it for X. What's your worst case scenario of how much money you're gonna have to put into it? Then you subtract the profit. This is what they can buy it for,
Right.
And that's tough on me though too, truthfully, because I'm not going through the houses looking at the layouts. We all know there can be a house that looks great, and then you get in there and the layout is the most quirkiest thing ever, and nobody wants it, you know. But that's the risk they're taking as well. But I still have to tell them like, hey, this is worst case, this is the lowest I can sell it for. This might be the max, and they have to figure out what that number is to buy it for. So,
well, the good thing is we're in a market to where you're never going to be lacking business. I mean, we're in the flipper haven. Things don't really slow down here.
No, they don't. And it's just the hardest part is finding deals though too. So it's like, you tell whatever deals you got that think are, and that's the problem is you tell a lot of agents like, hey, if you can give me a deal that I can flip, and then they send you normal listings that you're selling it at full resale value. Like, how am I going to make money on here? And they don't know what you're talking about.
So let's touch on that, because we're actually working hard on that, and I think we'll be able to do something together. How do you? That's been a lifetime goal of mine too. Is educating other. I think agents miss the boat. On educating themselves on what an investor looks for. Right? Because they don't take the time to really, and there's websites, that you can go on to figure out by zip code what construction costs should be. For an agent to take the time to an 8-hour day to learn how to run numbers, the value they can provide to an investor or anybody, and what they can do to their business by learning that. Why do you think the agents won't take the time to do that?
I don't know. It's maybe laziness or whatever, but people don't. It's tough getting into real estate and not knowing where your next paycheck's going to come from. So a lot of people, they get into real estate, they get licensed, they're all excited about it. They do it for a month and nothing happens, and then they go get a job elsewhere. They can get guaranteed money, you know. But
that makes sense.
So it is tough to get started, but you just have to put in the time. It's like anything. Nothing's easy. You know what I mean? It takes time and a lot of failure to succeed. You know what I mean? Nobody did this perfectly though either.
There's a resource that we were just talking about, and I want to share that so you have it for any agents or investors that need this. Homewise.com, HOMEWYSE. If you're working with an investor and they start asking you numbers and you say you don't know, that's cool. Say you don't know, but tell them you'll get the answer, right? And one of the easiest way to get answers is by connecting with other investors or agents that are doing that part of the business that you want to do, and or go to homewise.com. You can punch in the zip code and it'll give you a low, medium, and high cost of anything that can be done in a house, any kind of construction, any part of the construction. It'll give you the average of that zip code. So take that nugget and use it. And you can really make, a multiple. I don't want to put your financial numbers out there, but what would you say, normal retail clients, buyers and sellers, compared to your investor, what percentage is in your business? For me, it's probably honestly 30% investors, 70%, normal husband, wife have to sell their house. They move to Arizona, you know what I mean? So, and it changes all the time though too. Some years you get guys though that they're selling portfolios, you know what I mean? So those numbers add up, they change things. But the investors it's like an ongoing account, it's like on any sales job, you want accounts, you know what I mean? So if you have enough investors they're always buying, they're always looking, and investors, sometimes they want to go after a big deal, so they have to sell a couple assets to be able to get the money to buy those. So some investors trade properties back and forth, all the time. And some people are buying, some people are selling, and you just got to know who's a legit buyer, because you can waste a lot of time with investors where they want to look at 20 properties, and it's like, no, we're not going to do that. Like, what do you think you can rent this for? I tell them, and then it's okay, what's your max number right here? But, there's some buyers that
I can give them an address, they can go and we can look at it, and in 10 minutes they'll give me a number.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's not me spending 30 hours a week with trying to make $1,500. You know,
Right.
it's like legit buyers that know their numbers though as well.
Do you have a certain, so I'm a new investor coming to work with you.
Yeah.
Do you have a process that you take them through to make sure that you said like they are qualified?
Yeah, I mean, we talk, and I kind of give them ideas on. I'm really good at numbers though too. Like most of my investors that do it full time, we can walk through a house and we know the roof's going to cost $12,000, the kitchen's going to cost $7,000, the flooring's going to cost $4,000,
Yep.
paint's X per square foot. You know what I mean? So we know, so I can help them with that. And some people are always like, it's a little bit less, a little bit more. But then you always have to tell them like, hey, if you think it's going to cost $50,000 to put in this property, let's add 10%, like just a human error because of an unknown, foreseen, you know. And but we do go through a process with them, and we can help them out. But everyone's going to do what they want to do anyways,
Yeah.
you know. And there's a lot of guys though, like myself, and when we do flip houses, we sub it all out.
Yeah.
So I know a contractor that can give me a final number for everything, so I know my cost on it. And then there's other people that like, well, I can go to Home Depot and buy paint for $400. I'll paint it myself, you know. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, you got the guys that want to, you know, that work at Jeep and want to do it on the side, and you know, that's fine. Do what you want to do,
Yeah.
you know. But you can help them. You can definitely guide them. Like, hey, you don't need to put ceramic tile in here. You need to put LVT or whatever. Certain neighborhoods, though, you know, like don't get rid of this original hardwood and put LVT over it. Just keep the hardwood. You know, so
Right.
you can help them through that. But you know, I think once I talk to an investor and I know how much they want to spend and how much they want to make, then I can kind of find the properties
them a
for
little
them.
bit.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Your experience coming through the whole thing of flipping houses and all that just provides so much value compared to just, I don't want to say traditional realtor,
Yeah.
but someone that doesn't have that experience.
Yeah, and I learned a lot from doing it myself though too. Like I said, we started buying rental properties because I look at these guys and I'm like, man, this guy owns 100 houses. Like, how do you get there? And at the time, we'd go to the bank and the bank wouldn't loan me money, you know.
Right.
And it made no sense to me at the time. I mean, I was 26, 27 years old, and I'd go to a guy that owned a big steel company, and I was like, do you want to flip houses? And he's like, yeah, sure. How much money do you need? I'm like, what can you get me? And he'd call the bank. He'd call a local bank and was like, hey, this is so-and-so, you know, can I get a line of credit and put Sean on there? And they're like, yeah, we'll give you a $2 million line of credit at 3% interest.
Yeah.
I'm like, so I went in the bank, talked to the same guy, and he's like, what kind of assets do you have? I go, I don't know, house free and clear for $29,000. He's like, you don't understand. This guy's got a lot of money. Like, we can risk, you know what I mean, loaning him money. And so then we started buying rental properties when the market was way down. You know, you see a house for $12,000. Me and a buddy put $6,000 in. We rent it out for $800 a month, and we're off to the races.
Right.
And then next year we buy another one, so then we're bringing in $1,600 a month, and then you can buy another house every 6 months, and then you get so many you can buy one every 3 months, and then we end up to 22 properties, but they were all paid for though too. So
Nice.
we didn't leverage ourselves because that was a time. You know, I was in a lot of debt when I was really young, and I didn't want to do that. You know, and
Right.
when you rent out 6 houses in 1 month, you're ecstatic. You know what I mean? Like, this is great. But in a year or two, all those people move out, and then you're like, oh shit. You know what I mean?
Right.
But if you don't have any debt, it didn't affect me at all.
Doesn't worry about it.
Yeah, that's my take. There's so many strategies on investing, and I'm not saying any way is right or wrong, but that's what worked for us. You know?
That's awesome.
And then when the market got up, we were like, I started doing more traditional real estate. My partner's like, man, I'm managing all these. You're making more money in this. It's not fair to me. And I'm like, well, let's just sell it. We've been friends since we were in 3rd grade. You know, I don't want to ruin our relationship. And
Right.
the market was really good, so we sold them and took that money. And you know, I played in the stock market, and now I wish we would have held on to them because then it just tripled from there.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
but we still made a lot of money, so I'm happy. It got me to where I'm at in life,
Right.
you know. So it's like you can't predict the future,
No,
you know.
you sure
so,
can't.
But if you're making money and you're happy, that's you don't have to worry about what other people think though too.
Right.
If $1,000 a month to you is a lot of money, then that's fine. You know what I
As
mean?
you're happy.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have to appease everybody, you know.
So at the very beginning of this, you hit on one of the very important topic to me, and I know to you too. You
Mm-hmm.
started off with it, and that was leaning on a mentor.
Yeah.
Reaching out to somebody that helped you get started in the right direction. And your Dennis has helped
Yeah.
me out a lot over the past 15 years as well.
Yeah.
Talk about that. When you went to him and raised your hand and said, I need help.
Yeah.
You know?
So
the importance of mentorship.
Yeah. I mean, you can read, like some people can read books and apply it to life. I'm not like that. I don't know if I have like some form of dyslexia or whatever, but I can read a book and it makes no sense to me. I have to visually watch someone do it. So I told Dennis that, and that's when he said, come shadow me. And when I watched him make phone calls and saw what he did, I'm like, oh, I can do this. You know what I mean? It's not that hard, but there's too many young agents that think they know everything, and it's like, just ask for help and just get advice from everybody. You can ask one person advice and they're going to give you something. You can take something from it, and then you can ask someone else and you can get something else. And, you know, what I did is I asked a lot of agents, I asked for a lot of people to help me. Some people said no. I mean, I asked a commercial guy that was selling a lot of land if he would mentor me, and he goes, no, I have a son that I'm going to mentor. And I was like, I didn't take it personal. I'm like, he's too busy, you know, no big deal. Just ask someone else, like, how did you get there? And people will help you. But you know, you can interview people and ask them to mentor you, and then you can take pieces of what you don't like about their business. You know what I mean? There's always an agent that does stuff really good, but then they do stuff really bad though too. So if you can learn from that, you'll be like more successful, I feel.
What do you feel, here's the $1 million question that agents love to hear. What's the ROI on what you invest into your real estate brokerage compared to what you make?
For me, I honestly, I don't spend a lot of money. So I am not the agent that buys Zillow leads or all that. I have a magazine that I send out every other month to 200 people. And those are my friends, my family, guys I play hockey with, guys that I grew up with, past clients of who bought and sold from me. And it's just I'm in their face. You know what I mean? So that's what I spend. That costs me about $800 every other month. So, you know what I mean? You do the math on that. But, you know, so my advertising, I don't know, is probably 5%, if that, you know what I mean? Because you'll see all these agents that sell 10, 15 houses a month, you know, and they're making $25,000, $35,000 a month, but they're paying 10 to 15 grand a month in leads, you know, right. So they're working a lot of hours to gather, like they get one closing out of 100 contacts, you know, and I'm not that way. Like I want people that know, like, trust me, and it's just that's what's worked for me.
The referral businesses work best.
Yes,
for you.
The referral business is always, you know, and out of those magazines, there's only a few people that don't end up using me down the road, but those are just my contacts that are in there, my CRM. But I get a lot of referrals. So people are like, why would you send a magazine or mailers to people that just bought a house? Well, they have cousins, they have friends, they have, you know what I mean? And when you do a good job, you know, they're going to refer you over to them. And,
right.
And like we've talked in the past, is like, some people that I send those to, they actually have a relationship with another realtor, and that's okay if they don't use me right now, but we all know in business that relationships will eventually come to an end. So if they're happy with their realtor, something might happen in 1, 2, 3 years. The agent might pass away. They might get out of the business. I want to be next in line.
Right.
You know, so I'm setting myself up for the future to work with people. Yep. You know, so
that's awesome, man. The referral business is nowadays in this world of technology, everybody is spending money on to make it easier.
Yeah, you want to buy leads, and sometimes that works. You know, I tried that. I worked for an agent when she was on leave for a couple of months, and you get phone calls Friday night at 6, 7, 8 o'clock. You get nothing Monday through Thursday, and I'm like, that's just not for me. Yeah. I'm not good at talking to people because I'm like a type A driver. Like, let's get to the chase. Do you want to sell or do you want to buy? I don't want to, you know what I mean? Right. But that's my personality, and the leads don't work for me, actually.
That's awesome, man. I know you've built an impressive business over the years, and
Thank you.
You have a lot to give back. So, what's next for you? I mean, I know you got the whole real estate thing dialed in.
Yeah.
Like, what do you see yourself doing in the next, I don't know, 5 years? Retiring or?
Yeah, I don't know. You know, that's the funny thing is, like, when I was 25, I wanted to retire when I was 40. You know what I mean? Now that I'm 40, I don't know. It's like a lot of my friends are 15 to 20 years older than me, so I've learned from them, and they're in retirement, and they got their second retirement jobs now, and it seems like everyone that nobody ever stops working. You know what I mean? They go on more vacations, but, you know, we try to live life to the fullest. It's like if I get invited to a wedding, I never say no. You know what I mean? We'll go out of town and just do that. But I don't know. Hopefully still selling houses, but, you know, it's the one thing that we've talked about though too is I have a lot of agents that call me and ask for help and advice, and they have their cop job or their construction job, and they're getting into real estate, and they call me in a situation on a Friday at 7 o'clock at night, and the wife's yelling at me like, hey, just don't answer. And I'm like, they're in a jam. They need my help. You know what I mean? So it does get annoying certain times, but then when you look back, 3 years down the road, 2 years down the road, and they're making $100,000, $150,000, and I had just a little bit of help with that, there's nothing more rewarding than that. You know what I mean? It's like just helping someone, because that's what Dennis did for me. That's what Phil Henderson did for me. I call those guys all the time, like, I got this guy, he's telling me to do this and that, and they're like, just tell him this, this, and this, And then I'm like, oh my God, it worked, So when you don't know anything on how to give rebuttals or what to say to people, what do you know what I mean? So now if I can help someone do that, that's awesome.
That's cool.
It's fun giving it back.
Giving back is I think that's why we do this. You know what I mean? There's somebody watching this video right now that's just getting licensed, thinking, man, this industry isn't what I thought it was.
Yeah.
Right. And if we can share a little bit that helps them move the needle, that's why we do what we do.
Yeah.
How can people find you? Whether they're looking to buy, sell, other agents, like where are you at?
Yeah. Well, I'm right here in Toledo, but Facebook at Sean Siwa at Facebook, whatever that is. I don't know but you can Google me. My number's on there. I don't have any glamorous websites. I'm literally all word of mouth. But you can look me up on Instagram or Facebook. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me a message if I can help you out in any way.
Cool, man. I appreciate you taking the time to share your experience and share your knowledge. And I hope everybody watching this, you take a little bit of something from this. Real estate has been a life-changing industry for myself, for people like Sean. But no matter how many podcasts you watch, how many courses you take, how many different agents you talk to, you've got to do the work, right? There is no get rich quick. I don't care if you're an investor, an agent, or an investing agent, or any of that. You can get all the information, but you've got to go put it into action. So take some nuggets that you heard from this podcast today. Take some nuggets from the reels that you're going to watch off this. Just take some nuggets from us and go put them to work. And I hope you get the same results that we're getting on a daily basis. Thank you. We'll see you on the next one.
Thanks.